You're listening to the Devil Dog Talk Show.
This show contains explicit material and is recommended for ages 18 and older for mature audiences only. But hey, it's the internet.
Welcome to the Devil Dog Talk Show this wonderful morning. Today we have Hector Bravo Farrell. That's right, Hector Bravo. You might know him as that prison guard on YouTube or on Instagram and TikTok. That's Hector__Bravo. Make sure you guys check him out. He's been raising some great questions about the current safety issues in the state of California for not only police officers and prison guards, but the entire system as itself. And the bigger questions at hand is what? What are you talking about? First and foremost, nobody's talking about this stuff. I don't know many people that is even on the same page that could be like, oh, yeah, that's something I should be concerned about. Because, you know, inflation's pretty expensive right now, Joey. I know, guys. It's getting pretty bad. But no, Hector was talking about some really interesting stuff, and it struck a personal chord coming from a family with members in the corrections back in the day, in the early 1900s, guys. Yeah, I know, I'm pretty old. But he has more of a current understanding of what's going on. So I'm going to let him kind of take the wheel. Hector, how are you doing today?
Hey, pretty good, man. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being on. I know you're a busy guy. You sound like a busy guy. Let me just get to the points. So what is going on in the current, I would say, what is it? Is it the entire California Department of Corrections or?
Correct. California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. It's one big giant agency. As a matter of fact, it's the third largest law enforcement agency in the United States behind NYPD and behind the Border Patrol.
The third largest. Now, what does that actually mean in dollars for the state?
Oh, a bunch, man. I'm not a numbers guy or a mathematician guy. I'm a pretty much simple individual, like safety and security, simple-minded, bro. And that's what we've gotten away from. Safety.
Now, do you think because of the current temperature, I'm just going to say of the environment, economy, but also with the influx of, let's just say, not too standard processed immigrants. I don't know how to say it without triggering somebody on somewhere, right?
Illegal aliens.
Illegal aliens. Let's just say a word, okay?
Yeah.
How is that contributing to this issue of safety? And is it kind of the same mentality of, you know, we got to be soft on crime? Or that's because to me, that just seems like that's what's really putting our officers at more risk is the delay in action, the delay in force, the delay in instruction. You know, nobody wants to really engage in something like that and then have their ass run up a flagpole.
Those two necessarily do not go hand to hand, you know, the immigration problem currently. But however, a prison is a microcosm of the rest of the society and economics. So basically what you're seeing out on the streets, the whole defund the police movement, the newer generation criminals and convicts and inmates, even the newer generation correctional staff that lack communication skills. You know, growing up on an iPad is a lot different than when I grew up in the late 80s, early 90s, where you had to go outside, ride a bike, and, you know, and jump out, climb trees.
Actually engage with the world.
Correct. Yeah, you actually have to engage, right? You have to roll with the punches, as they say. Get your bruises. So you kind of learn how to grow as a person. But getting back to the question at hand, just like what you see out here in the United States, man, people in political positions of power, not making the right judgment calls, you know, and if you were to dig deeper, there's reasons behind the madness, you know, and not to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but, you know, all of this is by design, an agenda, so to say.
Okay. So I'm tracking. So given your work history, right, and what you've seen, I want to talk on two different fronts so we can introduce you as the whole character, not just the correctional officer. You spent how many years in the United States Army?
3 years from the age of 17 to 20. I had a 3-year contract.
Oh, wow. At 17.
Yeah.
Jeez. What years were that? Were you serving?
Oh, I enlisted. I was actually in the delayed entry program. So the whole entire senior year in high school, I had already signed the contract. That was my active duty was 2002 to 2005, right in the Iraq War.
Oh, wow. Jeez, man, that's like right in the thick of it.
Yeah, it was Operation Iraqi Freedom II. I deployed. I deployed the year after the invasion, so the beginning of the insurgency, guerrilla warfare.
That's right. That's right. Wow. Yeah, I was there in '06 in Iraq in Al Qaim area. It was very different. Yeah, it's very different. Like everybody, like we talk about it, like the whole 20 years, you know, it's come, or it's come, right? Well, that's not the way we want to say that. It's came to an end. And
Right.
And even though we're it's like hindsight 2020, and you know the change in the atmosphere now with drones and you know
Facts.
Ukraine and all these different things that are going on in the world, it's like, you know, I remember now we're those old guys in the back of the VFW going, I remember when, right? Back
I'm over
back
here.
in my day.
I'm over here trying to plan how am I going to avoid drones for the next war, you know?
You know, that's a question I have for everybody out there, honestly. You know, people smarter than me, most definitely. But the biggest question I have, what I recall this thing called electronic warfare, where there was counter radio signals and jamming and
Right.
and all the
Jammers.
all of this, like actually monstrous planes and little planes and different planes, and they all have a job.
Right.
It's a really interesting thing. And how is a cheap ass little drone that I could probably get on Amazon beating all of that to the point where they're just downing tanks and then fucking with people left and right? Like, just I saw one of those, dude. It looks like one of those Tom and Jerry little situations, and I'm like, nah, man, let me die with a bit of dignity, like
Right.
just the scratch of it. Oh man, where did those go? What happened to electronic warfare, guys? Honestly.
I have no idea, man.
It seems like everybody nowadays is a Navy SEAL or a freaking Delta guy. I'm like, no, maybe,
Yeah, so
maybe.
Basically, that's where I got all my leadership skills from, man. I learned from the best, literally the best, man. In 2002, my NCOs, my sergeants, dude, a lot of them later on would go off to Iraq and get killed in action. I mean, these guys were the tip of the spear type of individuals. Integrity, honor, duty, selfless service, the whole works, bro. And as a young, impressionable mind, they left a mark on me.
Yeah.
And I actually live each day forward, trying to fill those boots, even though I know it's not possible, but living in their honor. As a matter of fact, yesterday I stopped at Riverside National Cemetery and visited my buddy Edgar Doc Daclon, who was killed on our deployment. He was our medic.
Oh, geez, man. Those are always tough.
Yeah, it was rough, bro.
You know, everybody says, you know, it's tough to lose somebody in service when you're serving. But docs, I don't know what it is. It just hits different. There's just a special little notch in the heart,
Oh,
right?
man. For about 10 years afterwards, I was living with Survivors Guild. I just wanted to trade places so bad with him, man. I couldn't, you know what I mean?
I do. That, you know, that's the saddest truth is I hear that, not to minimize it, but to validate it and recognize it, right? To talk about it. That's what a lot of people don't do, right? And that's what I love about this show and, you know, being a corpsman was you being able to talk to people on a level that you can share those vulnerable moments, all right? It's cool. Like, we're all vulnerable. We're all squishy little pink, like mushy parts with a little bit of bone in it, right?
Yeah.
But it's important to talk through those things that are difficult, right? Like survivor's guilt. Like that is so bad because it robs you of the present moments, and people don't talk about that enough. That's so difficult, man. How are you dealing with that?
My thought, well, back then at the time, I was devastated, bro. He was killed while we were out on patrol, and the day was September 10th, 2004. My mom's birthday is September 10th. So yeah, I remember clearly thinking, man, I'm a grunt. I'm an infantryman. I should have died. I needed to die, not him. He was a medic. He was put here to help people. And but that just was the type of guy that he was. He was a leader, and that's how he got killed, you know, leading from the front. It was a roadside bomb, IED. And for, like I said, dude, for the longest time, it's like, hey, I'm a grunt. I'm expendable. I needed to die, right? And now, bro, it's been 20 years. We're in 2024, and I find that surreal in itself. I started seeking treatment for alcoholism and post-traumatic stress disorder in the year 2010. That's when I hit my bottom. I've been sober for 13 years.
Congratulations, dude. That's hella tough.
Thank you. Oh, then I have a 5-year-old daughter, bro, and a wife and a little dog. So
That's
now,
beautiful.
I have a life of gratitude.
That's
That's
beautiful.
kind of how I get through it.
Honestly, that's the most beautiful thing. I love hearing people talk about that, right? Like everybody can be tough and stoic on the surface, the day-to-day stuff. Like we don't excuse me. We don't want to be like, oh yeah, my back hurts. Oh yeah, my neck hurts. Oh yeah, my knees hurt. Yeah, I'm tripping out and there's something going on that's more difficult at hand. But at the end of the day, if you don't try, you end up again just limiting yourself, and those negative emotions just go out more often, and the sensations of I don't deserve, or just that lack of gratitude, like you're saying, like not realizing what we should be grateful for. Like for myself, I just got back from Anaheim Hills literally yesterday. I'm
Nice.
exhausted, dude. And all we did was a robotic. I shouldn't say I'm downplaying. I didn't do a damn thing. My kids, they got to do a robotics competition. And it's
Nice.
super cool, man. Like they get so excited about it. They spend months developing this little robot, and he does the programming. Another partner does the driving. Another one does the I guess data collection. Like there's just so many little moving parts to these teams, right? And these kids, they just get so excited, and I'm sitting back and I'm watching them. And a couple of the parents they were Marines. So me being a corpsman, we all just get along. We're just shooting the shit like for hours, talking about current stuff that's happening. But I sit back and I'm realizing that this is the American dream. People forget to talk about the nuanced day-to-day stuff. Like, yeah, I went to Starbucks. The person wrote down my name. It was pretty good.
Right.
I got to drive down the street in a car I'm still making payments on. That's pretty damn good. Like, hold on to those little things so you can accomplish those big things. That's so beautiful, dude. I'm so glad that you're focusing on that and staying sober. So what brought you to the sobriety? Was it experience, or was it just an ultimatum?
What brought me to sobriety was doing everything the wrong way first. And, I wasn't always grateful, man. I had it all and I was not happy. I was not happy on the inside. I had the career, the girl, the house, and I was not happy, man. And that was a direct correlation, looking back in hindsight, as a result of my alcoholism. Alcohol is a depressant, bro. I didn't even realize that. Here I am suffering from undiagnosed PTSD and drowning my sorrows away in alcohol, booze, and drugs, bro. Coke, meth, weed.
Jeez.
It was bad, dude. I was self-medicating without even knowing what self-medication was. I was just telling everybody, hey, I'm partying. I'm making up for the year that I was deployed.
Yeah.
I'm young. Young kids are supposed to do this. But the reality of us, I was suffering, bro. And that ultimately brought me down to my knees. I was in an extremely dark hole, man. I didn't want to live any longer.
Yeah.
I didn't have the courage to take my own life, but I was doing everything possible to ensure that I sped up that fucking process, if you know what I mean.
I do. Sadly enough, it does sound so common, the path that we go down as far as service members. And I am positive it's not just the GWAT veterans, and I know it's not just but it's one of those unique things that we're the era that are standing up and saying, hey, like, I had to really make some changes, y'all. Like the guy at the VFW, that Vietnam vet who said, just keep your head on a swivel and keep going. You'll make it, little dude. Like, he wasn't lying. It's forever. You will be fighting forever. And it may be in your own head, and that's okay. Because hopefully you get the right support systems and you get the right tools in the toolbox to get yourself from day to day doing the things you want to do as best as possible. So when you're going through sobriety, right, and you had that, I don't want to say coming to God moment. I always project God on everybody because that's what I believe in, but I don't know what
Right.
I don't know what the right psychology major.
No, I hear what you're saying. 'Cause, yeah, coming to God moment. Everybody can understand what a coming to God moment is.
You'd hope, right? But after like
Right.
some of the shit I've seen being published and discussed in public, I'm like, yo, like, do we have words anymore? Can we use words together and agree on things? Nah, everything's up for grabs.
Bro, I'm bringing it back, bro. I'm bringing back the old school ways.
I want things just to be so simple where people are just on the same beat a little bit, just a little bit.
Right.
Oh man. So no, but you're focusing on sobriety and the past 12 years and you're showing that gratitude and you're just coming back, doing a trip too. What is it like moving forward and then because it didn't seem like you transitioned gracefully like most of us, right? Pirouetted right into the shit, right? and I mean it because you go from the Army to the state of California Department of Corrections. Like, what was that decision like? How did that? What were you pursuing there? What did that look like?
I was pursuing a career. I was following my father's footsteps of being a correctional officer with the state of California. He joined in 1993, so I was just at the time had that mindset. You serve your country, you get out, you join a career, law enforcement. It's applauded. You know what I mean? At the time, now, fuck, now we're in a different era. But this was 2006.
Got you.
And I've always kind of had that passion to serve, and yeah, basically, bro, the story about the two wolves, the bad wolf and the good wolf. If I don't feed my good wolf, bro, the bad wolf will fucking take over, dude. So I have an addictive personality, and if I don't feed it positive things, then fuck, you best believe I can turn negative with a quickness.
That's powerful to acknowledge too. It takes a mighty person to look in enough to understand that. I'm not joking. That's a very solid thing to be able to like speak on, acknowledge, and then actually articulate in the way you just put it. If you don't do this, it will consume you. And it's
facts.
Bro, I'm telling you, it's a slippery slope once you start doing one thing or the other. You gotta keep going, gotta keep picking it up. The weight's heavy. Sure, shit facts. It is. That's why they call it weight.
But and it wasn't, like you said, it wasn't a smooth transition, bro. It was a lot of what it was a lot of 2 steps forward, 4 steps backwards, 1 step forward, 2 steps backwards. That's what it was, man. And ultimately, being persistent and consistent, not perfect. I've been able to achieve what I have right now, and it's peace of mind, bro. It's sanity. It's serenity. Yeah. And that's all I could have ever asked for, bro. Because I literally thought I had gone crazy, man. I literally thought, and I started this journey at the emergency room in La Jolla at the VA hospital. Okay. I went up to the lady and I said, I need help. She's like, well, what's wrong with you? I said, I don't know. Every time I drink, there's something bad happens. I have these thoughts I don't understand. And they're like, all right, well, you look like you'll be a good candidate to go upstairs and get help. I'm like, sure, whatever. Oh, it was a psych ward, bro. Yeah. They didn't tell me that. They're like, do you want to voluntarily go up there? I'm like, yeah, that's why I'm here.
She's like, yeah, they're so nice. They're gonna give you some chanclas and shit.
But while I was in there, man, I attended my first Alcoholics Anonymous meeting,
nice.
And since then, I've been attending weekly. Since then, I was graceful enough to get enrolled right into a 28-day inpatient rehab substance abuse program through the VA immediately after my little 3-day stint at the psych ward. So I've been hitting it hard, bro. It was the willingness. People say willpower. Oh, man, you have a lot of willpower to not drink. To me, it was more than willpower, man. It was the willingness of wanting to change my life because I could no longer continue the path that I was on.
That is so awesome. I mean, not that you gone through that, right? But the fact that you acknowledged it, you did the work, you did the steps. I believe that's what the AA does.
Correct. Yeah, 12 steps.
Okay, good. And you have a support system that believes in what you are and who you are. You utilizing those tools, right? So,
yeah, bro.
So when you started in corrections, right, you were still a very young man.
Yes.
You said about 2006. What state prisons did you end up serving in, and what was that like? As you're transitioning up to that point where you had to have an exit strategy, so to speak.
So I started at Centinela State Prison. That's in Imperial, California, in Imperial County, and that is a level 4, level 3 general population security prison. So pretty much gangsters, man. Your gangbangers, your gang members. Your typical thing that you would expect prison to be. It was busy, bro. Riots, 200-man riots, race riots between black inmates and Mexican inmates, white inmates and Mexican inmates. It was just off the hook. Staff assaults where the inmates will attack the correctional officers, attempted murders. It was busy. I did 8 years of that as a correctional officer. After 8 years, I promoted to the rank of sergeant at a different prison. Richard J. Donovan Correctional Facility, RJD, in San Diego. And now that place was like a psych ward, bro. Mentally unstable inmates. Oh my goodness, dude. It was night and day, bro. It was night and day.
Really?
And yeah, so I did 8 years at that first prison and then 8 years at that second prison. I ultimately reached the rank of lieutenant.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I just saw a lot of BS towards the end of it, man, where I had to bounce, dude. I chose my family over the job, chose my sanity over the job.
Now, do you think that was an isolated prison where Donovan was so, I guess, more of a psych ward than a prison? Or was it just administratively? Was it the policies coming out and you were like, hell no?
So
A combination of everything?
During my career, once I got sober, bro, once I got sober, things started to get better in my life, man. Imagine that. So I started getting, I joined the SWAT team for the prison. That's called the Crisis Response Team. I became a hostage negotiator. And then I eventually became the tactical commander, the CERT commander, in charge of the whole entire team. I even had the opportunity to become the public information officer, the PIO. So that's the person that wears the suit and talks in front of the camera when something major happens to the public.
Okay.
But as a result of being in those positions, man, I got exposed to the administration. You know what I mean? I was sitting behind a lot of closed door meetings with the higher ups. And let me tell you, man, it was rampant corruption, bro. And up until that point, I had not seen that firsthand because, I had been a pawn at the lower level, a foot soldier. So once I did truly see what was happening, I knew I could no longer stick around, man. That was not for me.
Did it strike more against your morals, or was it more your just beliefs in how things should function?
My morals, bro. My morals, my ethics, my values, everything I was taught in the military, everything my leaders showed me. The administration purposely putting the inmates' lives in danger and risking their lives, purposely putting the staff members' lives in danger and risking their lives, all for personal gains and agendas, bro. Like, they literally sold everybody out. That's not my style.
Now, was that common there at that prison, or was it common as a whole in the system?
So to answer your question, it was a statewide problem that I would eventually see because those instructions were coming from our headquarters. Our headquarters for the entire department is based out of Sacramento. So basically the brains of the operation were pushing out this corruption. So yeah, at all prisons, at all 33 prisons.
Now, see, that's the interesting thing too, because a lot of people on the day-to-day basis don't know, one, what's the difference between a state prison and a federal prison, right? And what's the difference between a correctional sergeant, a correctional lieutenant? There's a lot of good questions here that I really want to dive into. Mainly, what was the big shift and in what years were this, I want to say soft on crime, soft on criminals type of mentality take in? When did that happen?
I'm going to say 2014, 2015. At around the same times that you had the Ferguson hands up, don't shoot incident. And then you got to remember simultaneously as this stuff is happening out on the streets, stuff is happening inside of the prison, man, and they're emulating each other. And this had to have been around 2014, 2015. Not only in society, but in the California Department of Corrections.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so You said 2000. I'm sorry, the phone was breaking up. 2014
14, 15.
Okay. Wow, that's not too long. That's not too long ago.
It wasn't too, well, technically it's 10 years ago, which is kind of a long time, but the acceleration of the change, the acceleration of the agenda was drastic, man, drastic. As a matter of fact, right before I left, I resigned December 1st, 2022. Right before I left, we had an associate director by the name of Ron Davis, who's a big wig, supposedly. He came down to our prison and told us, hey, you can no longer put inmates in handcuffs anymore if they tell you they don't want you to be placed in handcuffs.
Are you shitting me?
I swear to God, bro. So when we corrected him and we said, nah, the penal code doesn't say that. The penal code says, the peace officers don't have the duty to retreat. He's like, nah, man, that doesn't. He said the penal code doesn't apply to us. It applies to police officers out on the streets, which is a lie. That's why we're sworn peace officers. So he didn't even know his own policy or law.
See, and that's another thing people don't really understand. They think that because correctional officers are at prisons, that they're not seen as police officers. And I'm like,
well, we have, as a correctional officer, you get sworn in at the academy after you complete it. And that gives you peace officer powers while you're on the job.
So they're the same. They're lateral, right?
Correct.
Okay. Because the bigger question I always have too is like, I understand that there's kind of like branches, right? There's the inner fighting like between California Highway Patrol and Department of Corrections, sheriffs, right? Everybody has their little fun, I should say.
Yeah.
Wow, dude. So when the policies were changing and there was a noted increase in violence, right? Because this was something you just posted the other day where there was an assault on staff, right? And when I was a kid, that was one of the scariest things. Of course, my parents worked out of prison. One of the weirder parts about being a kid is you'll find books that they had to study, about blood exposure and what to do and, what not to do and PPE and all this cool stuff. And I was like, I was always interested in what they do, up to the point where they took us in for family night at Kalinga State Prison. I think it's called Pleasant Valley State Prison. Yeah. That's an interesting name for a prison.
Yeah.
So anyways, they closed the door on us and I promised myself and God, I will do everything and anything to never be on this side of a door again like that.
Correct.
It's just that powerful. Like the only other fear I have besides God is a prison cell. Like that's it.
Right.
So as the shift happened and you saw these increase of violent attacks, like the one you posted on a while ago or just this past week, is there anything being done to, I don't want to say assert because there are the CERT and tactical units and, riot control and all that stuff. But why is it not being managed before it gets to that point? Like, why are the conversations not being had?
Not only are they not managing before these incidents take place, I want you to understand that they are rewarding the inmate population after they attack staff. I'll say that again. They are rewarding. The administration is rewarding the inmate population after they attack staff.
What does that look like?
Let me give you an example.
Yeah, I was just going to say, what does that look like?
Let me give you an example. So in August of 2020, at Richard J. Donovan Correctional Facility, you can Google it. Put RJD prison inmates attack officers or guards in August of 2020, San Diego. A group of inmates, actually Mexican Mafia member, and their cronies attacked officers. Well, no later than 2 days or 3 days later, that warden who I was working for, I was the warden's right-hand man. Remember, I was a PIO. He decided to have a barbecue plate food sale for the inmates and personally hand-deliver those inmates barbecue plates. That's when I told him, sir, send me back to the line. I don't want any part of this. And that's when I walked away from that PIO position. So listen, they hand-delivered barbecue plates to those inmates. Just imagine what message that sends to the staff and what message that sends to the inmates.
You bring up that messages and morals and stuff like that, right? Going into this conversation, I'm like, it's very reassuring that still exists in conversations, but also in gentlemen and people who have experience, because it's very odd to say it's because they were rewarded, right? And what were they rewarded? Well, they got barbecue plates. Well, the day-to-day person's going, and I don't get the fuck what's your point here, bud? Like, and I go, no, you don't understand. If you do anything different in these cultures and communities, they
Correct.
see it as a win. Okay. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know the rules, but I've watched plenty of movies where you can kind of get it. And at the end of the day, here you are with the world of experience saying, yeah, that's a big step in the wrong direction. And I'm like, okay, I believe you. Like, why wouldn't I? Like, I don't need to work in it to know that, right? To know that, hey, that's a sign of something weird. So,
you got to understand, man. You got to understand prison and war, and I'll go ahead and say society in general, man. Dating back to the caveman days, we are a very, war is part of our nature. War is part of our being, man, and it's dominance, right? It's alpha male, it's predators versus prey, and I have experience, unfortunately, in dealing with predators. 20 years to be exact. I kind of know what makes them tick and what doesn't. And bringing barbecue plates to somebody that just stabbed an officer, wow.
See, and that's the thing too. Like, people get it. Like, the only thing most other people get at work are pizza parties or muffins.
Mind you, this is barbecue plates from outside of the prison, not prison.
Oh shit, that's even worse.
Correct.
Okay.
And when I confronted the warden and I told him, sir, you do not want to do this. You do not want to do this.
Wow.
His response was, I don't tell you how to do your job. Don't tell me how to do mine.
Now, do you find that to be an egotistical issue, or is it just a pride, or is it both, or is it one of those things like, because this guy had an idea and it has to work?
I'm very high in emotional intelligence, IE or EI, emotional intelligence. And I'm good at reading people, which I think also came with the job. You gotta study people's behavior, their facial expressions, their body language, and
it's important.
Let me tell you, correct. For survival. Let me tell you something, man. The majority of the administrators, I'm not going to say all because that would be a blanket statement. The majority of the administrators and managers for the California Department of Corrections are egotistical, narcissistic maniacs, literally functioning psychopaths. And I say functioning psychopaths because I spoke to a mental health professional recently who works in the prison. I said, do they have a name for those type of people? And she's like, yeah, functioning social psychopath.
That's not.
It's scary, man, but it's the truth.
I believe it, because you have to, again, believe in a delusional concept such as,
correct.
Let's be honest. Like, it's called a rehabilitation corrections facility. You can call it whatever you want. It's still a prison, right? And at the end of the day, the United States has I think I'm pretty positive. I may be wrong. Anybody who's smarter than me, go ahead and correct me. But we have the highest number of inmates in any nation, right? In prisons. We have, I think, one of the most, I'm not saying hypocritical, but let's just say, like, if you start peeling back the layers of the criminal justice system and how it's a very downward looking type of system and entity, there's very little looking up and persecuting those, right? Let's just say. But it's a fundamental thing to talk about, because it's important to say, hey, at the base of it, we can't just convert let's say the American prison system to like the Swedish model, or the really let's get these people educated model, right? Which some programs do excel, some programs do work. Not everybody in prison is a psychopath, right? I don't know.
Right, correct.
But at the same time, we can't have people that are looking at the herd to be manipulated. That's a word I just made up. Manipulated.
Yeah.
To do something on an agenda appeal. Meaning, let's look at it this way. How much money is it to insert any program? I'm not that smart, but let's just use the VA as a veteran. Let's talk as a veteran real quick. If I were to insert a program of rehabilitation into the VA as a contractor, that's a fuck ton of money. All right. I don't even know the numbers. If you do the same thing with the state of California, pretty positive it's the same shit. And you have these people calling the shots saying, oh, don't write something up or do write something up, or, don't put cuffs on people, do put cuffs on people, don't extract them from the cell, do extract. So there's so many things like keeping your hands tied behind your back. And I go back to the veterans experience of fighting in a war. Not going to lie, but it felt pretty much like for 20 fucking years, we had about a hand and a half tied behind our backs and everybody going, please win this one for us. I'm like, okay. It just seems like we're repeating ourselves, right? The leadership wants to shoot ourselves in the foot. Yeah, it does. Sadly enough. Now, do you think that the current system is kind of going to, I want to say it's mirroring what the military is doing, right? They're just making piss poor investments out loud, right? And nobody's joining. Do you think that that's going to happen with corrections to the point where, man, they're going to have to really lower the standards and expectations like the military just did with, ASVABs and GEDs and high school diplomas?
CDCR, California Department of Corrections, is already ahead of the game with that. It's disheartening to hear the military has gone that way, because I served in 2002, man. It was old school back then in Germany. I mean, your sergeant will take you out back and beat your ass behind the building. And we preferred that. It wasn't going to tarnish your career.
And it was effective.
Correct. Yeah, you learned quick.
We used to call it the tree line. The tree line. You go out to the tree line if you have, any extra learning needed. You just take it to the tree line.
Right. So yeah, man, it's it's going to take people like myself, people like yourself, people who are willing to sacrifice a lot, stand up and say the truth, man. I mean, and for the longest time, I stayed quiet because I was afraid of retaliation. I was afraid of harassment. I was afraid of losing my job. But ultimately, I chose to resign. I chose to quit and take that away from them, where they can no longer hold me, hostage.
Now, transitioning away from that, the second career, right? And where you're headed now, what does the future look like for you? And what is your primary focus on your day-to-day, steps you take?
Basically, bro, I have found a way to monetize my passion. And my passion is to help others people get out of the dark hole as a result of trauma, as a result of substance abuse, as a result of mental illness that I know all too well. And given platforms like Instagram, YouTube, this is 2024, man. It's I'm able to, it was a learning process, a learning curve, but I'm able to reach the masses, and I'm able to reach those that need to be reached, man, the ones that are hurting the most. For the longest time, I used to curse God. Why couldn't I die? I've had over a dozen near-death experiences, and I mean near-death experiences. And I felt that I was cursed. Why can't I just die? And I see it now, bro. I see why God has me here, and it's to help other people.
That's beautiful. To have that sense of passion, especially going through it yourself, serving, especially during, I'm not trying to denigrate or minimize anybody's years of service, but that initial push was a very different war. And that's the thing about 20 years of war. It shifts so much throughout the entirety of it. The different types of weapons we were seeing, tactics, excuse me, the different type of tactics and everything in between. And for you, as a very, very young man, to come in to the Army, to serve your nation that young, and then to continue that service, transcending that spirit, that moral, or I should say morality and values that you found deep within yourself, and then again, within the Army, and then to the corrections, and now pursuing it for yourself, because I find that path a very difficult one, right? The one where you're constantly questioning yourself the external world. Am I being illusioned? Am I being delusional? Am I going along with the Kool-Aid because I'm drinking it too much, right? I don't know.
Right.
That's the problem that we all have to ask ourselves philosophically, right? What is the works that I'm pushing forward? If it's a part of a bigger plan or not, right? I ask God all the time. I pray, man, what am I doing with this? Like honestly, half the time I'm terrified to record because I'm going, I meet so many great people and have great conversations like the one today with you about just a bigger sense of being, a bigger sense of passion where, here's some shit and it's shitty and we don't have a direct or perfect answer, but we should talk about this as adults. Let's talk about it so nobody's getting shanked. I think shanks and stabbing wounds are very bad. I don't think
Right.
I don't think anybody would disagree. So, to refocus it onto you, what do you see in the near future with not just corrections, but yourself as a leading person, an influencer, so to speak, where you're bringing awareness to different modalities of therapy. You talked about sobriety. Do you do more discussions just focusing in on that as well on different forums, or what do you got going with that?
Dude, it's been an upward trajectory for the last year, man. It's just been nothing but upward. Opportunities, opportunities that I could have never imagined or even dreamed of or hoped of. We just finished up filming a documentary. The documentary is called Grunt, and that is going to be on my experience in Operation Iraqi Freedom II and the mental health problems, struggles that I encountered, and hopefully that'll be a tool for other individuals. And I'm looking to the future, bro. I'm looking for the future wars of America, where young soldiers have to go off and fight and they come back and they feel like an alien. I want them to know, hey, man, what you're going through is normal. Your brain rewired itself. It's totally normal as a way to survive. Now you just got to seek the treatment.
Yeah. Like honestly, that's you said it perfectly. You have to actually seek it. You have to seek it and you have to try. And as simple as as simple as it is, right? As simple as it sounds, the first steps are always the most critical and biggest, right? The hero's journey can't get started without that first step, right? And that's okay. And to bring it to the whole sense of sobriety, what I really enjoy is that people will fundamentally say, hey, I can cope with different things. I can use things differently. I can explore other different type of experiences. Like honestly, sensations in general are pretty amazing. Like watching the sunset, watching the sunrise, watching a couple stars, hanging out with your family, getting a different serotonin, dopamine type of release where you're saying, hey, I like the way that feels. I mean, it does kind of sound weird coming from, probably guys that look like us, right? Like, hey, I feel really good. I like the way my brain feels right now, but honestly, being able to tap into those emotional states is good and it's healthy. And if you're going through stuff, check Hector out. Hector Bravo. It's Hector Bravo Farrell. That prison guard on YouTube. Instagram, it's Hector__Bravo. The links will be at the bottom. So, Hector, I got a couple more questions for you. What was I would say, the most standout experience, not just in the Army, but also in your corrections career? Let's say both. What would be the one of each most standout experiences?
Man, when you say stand out, I'm going to have to say probably the worst times of both, bro. The standout in the Army was my friend getting killed, man. Edgar Dacklon, our medic, when we were out on patrol, having to load his body on the helicopter, the medevac, having my buddy O'Neill wounded in that same attack, our lieutenant, our platoon leader wounded. We had 2 wounded and 1 KIA. That stands out. That's the worst day of my life. I live with it every day. I think about it every day. And with corrections, um, when I promoted a sergeant, man, this inmate tied a knife to his hand, tied a weapon to his hand, and he stabbed one of my officers in the building. And I responded to that incident, and pretty much, to keep it real, we stomped that dude out, man. We stomped him out up until the point he was no longer a threat, which is within policy, because he's still a threat as long as that knife is tied to his hand. And then those two major incidents, right, stand out, bro. But if I were to say the happiest moments, the happiest was when the day that I walked out of staff entrance of the prison, December 1st, 2022. I felt the stress lift off my shoulders, and happiness as far as the military was when I got married on 11/11/11, Veterans Day. All my Army brothers came from all over, dude, and we had for my wedding.
Nice.
It was like a big ass room. Yeah,
dude, that is beautiful. See, I love the parallels that you just drew, right? Which is, I want to say very awesome, because it's humbling, right? You go from one spectrum, and I guarantee you this is you as a gentleman. You go from one spectrum to the next. You have your very high peaks and you have your very deep valleys, right? And you're connecting the two of these with bridges and rivers and, all the beautiful painting stuff. And Bob Ross could sit here and be like, yeah, put a little beautiful tree right there.
right.
But the truth of the matter is doing the work and just trying your best. That's where you're at, and that's a beautiful journey to be on. It's tremendous because you're brought up, adversity and working through it, having that deep sense of loss and regret, survivor's guilt, and then having to transition into different types of adversities, both as a gentleman and then also as a warrior, still serving in a capacity that is very very emotional and very establishing in the sense of honor, right? A lot of people, they don't discuss it because we don't see it day to day, nor is it glorified. Nobody wants to actually sit in a prison and watch people be in prison, right? I mean, I'm sure there's TV shows and shit like it, but the day-to-day stuff that you guys see goes deeply underappreciated, if not unacknowledged at the minimum, right? So I always find that interesting, having conversations with correctional officers my whole life. But definitely this one conversation, I think, really sets me back, not only on the aspect of yourself as a human being, but as yourself as a creator, having these great conversations with people on different podcasts and bringing to light the different concerns within a system that isn't just about the prisoner, right? Because there's two people in there. There's the security, there's the officers, there's administrators. You got your medical staff. You have a lot of people. It's like a little city. It's like a big old little city between walls.
Definitely.
With a lot of different rules and a big old culture behind it. So
Correct.
Let's wrap it up here. And I really want to just give you a moment for any kind of shout outs that you may have, taglines, promotions on your social medias. How do we keep in touch and how do we check out your stuff?
I'm on YouTube, That Prison Guard, and Instagram, Hector__Bravo. And just, I can leave a message. It's ask for help. I was so stubborn that I was willing to die. That's how stubborn I am. And it wasn't until I finally surrendered to win where things changed for the best in my life.
Internet, hello. Assistant Ocean number 4, and then he's number represent Irish number 6 is yes,